Welcome back, everyone. In the last video, we learned about initializing some local state inside of this component, which is an object that has key value pairs in it. And then how do we access that state object, or any JavaScript variable really, inside of our JSX code? In this lesson, we're going to learn more about extending some JavaScript functionality into these components to do something much more dynamic and much more useful when it comes to building applications. So what we want to do is, let's say I just wanted to click this button, change name, and then have it change from Yihua to Andre. How do I do that? So inside of your JSX, React actually allows you to bind event handlers onto any HTML element. So what is an event handler? Event handler is really just something that I want to happen whenever an event happens. So what this means for our button, per se, is every time this button is clicked, I want something to happen. So to do that, I have access to this on and then the name of the event. In this particular case, I want on click. So whenever this gets clicked, I want some functionality to happen. And the way that I can tell it what functionality to happen whenever I click it is I say onClick is a property, which is equal to a block of JavaScript. And remember, whenever I want to access JavaScript, whether it be a variable or even hard-coded in JavaScript, I use these curly braces. So here I'm saying, hey, onClick equals, and then inside of here, what onClick is expecting is a function. You may hear the word function or callback function used pretty interchangeably. A callback is just a function you pass to some kind of handler that you want it to call during some process. In this particular case, of course, I want it to be called whenever it gets clicked. So I'm passing it right now this empty function, so nothing will happen. But what I want to do whenever this button is clicked, again, is change the name value to Andre instead of Yihua. Now, you might think, oh, let me just do this.state.name is equal to Andre. But this is actually not going to behave the way that we're expecting it to. In fact, let's also console.log this.state, just so that we're very clear about what's happening once we save this. So if we go back to our application, we hit this button, change name. No matter how many times we hit it, we see that Yihua here is not updating to Andre, even though the object that gets logged out is the correct value we're expecting. We see that our object here, name, is now Andre, but why is it that inside our application, it's still using the previous value of Yihua? Now, this actually has to do with the way that React determines when a component needs to re-render. And re-rendering in this case, as I mentioned, is when React decides, oh, I need to update the DOM or repaint the UI. So let's break down why exactly it is that here this is not working the way that we want it to. This actually has to do with the fact that we're not actually changing the object in a way that React recognizes that the state object is different. Now you might be wondering, well, Yihua, the object is different. It used to say name equals Yihua, now it says name equals Andre. But for React, it's not leveraging that change in the values in the object as an actual change. The way that React detects it that there's a change is it uses JavaScript's underlying reference by memory for an object. What that means is that in memory, whenever we instantiate a variable, let's say const object1, and let me say that this object is equal to the same object that we have as our state. So name is equal to Yihua. This object1 is just pointing to this object when it gets instantiated. So what happens is that under the hood, JavaScript goes, oh, there's this object I want to create in memory, which has this shape, name equals Yihua. And then I'm going to create some variable called object1, and it's going to point to this object that it just made. An easy way to see this is if I say object2 is equal to object1. What's happening here is that JavaScript's like, oh, okay, this object1, what's it pointing to? It's pointing to this object in memory. So I'm just going to make object2 a pointer that points to the same object in memory. And now if I say object2, strict equality, which is 3 equal signs, equals to object1, it'll say that it's true. Strict equality just says, hey, are these two pointers pointing to the same thing in memory? Yes, they are. This is object equality when you do triple equals with objects. The reason why this is actually not working for React and updating the DOM has to do with this concept. Let's say we say object1.name is equal to Andre. When I update this, object1 now has that new updated value. Object2 also has that updated value. And this makes sense. They're both pointing to the same thing in memory. But again, this object in memory is not different. It's the same object in memory. So even though the value has changed, it's still the same thing in memory. So for React actually says the only way I'm going to update a component when I know that the state is different is if there's a completely different object in memory. And how does that happen? Well, let me give you an example. Let's say we make another object, object3. And in here we use object.assign. Object assign is a method that allows us to create a different object using another object as a template. So let's say first what I'm saying is the first argument is a new object, a brand new object. So this is the first argument. It's like, what do I want to make or assign a new object from? The first one is a brand new object right here. The second one, I want to use object1. Now if I look, object3, it has the same signature, or it has the same shape as object1. It's still name equals Andre. But now if I do object1 triple equals, again, strict equality, with object3, I see that it's false. And the reason for this is because this object, even though it's the same one as object1 when we changed it, these are two different objects in memory. An even easier way to do this is if I say const object4 is equal to an object with the name Andre. Here you'll see that I'm typing out a brand new object. So this is a completely different object. Even though it looks the exact same as object1 and object2's pointing object in memory, even object3, they all look the same. But when we do strict equality with object4, we see that it's different. Object3 and object4, completely different. Not the same object in memory. So this is when React will determine that it needs to re-render your component, is when state is a completely different object in memory. The moment it's a different object in memory, React will be like, oh, okay, it's time to update this object. So let's do that quickly, actually. How do we do this? Well, an easy way that we can do this, React actually gives us a method, and it's called setState. Now, setState is an interesting method because there's actually many ways to use it, but I'm going to show you the very basic, simple way, which is that you give it an object that you want to shallow merge with your current state object. What's shallow merge? A shallow merge just means that whatever values that you pass to me inside of this object, I am going to update and check through the state object to see if there are the same keys. If there are the same keys, I'm going to update your state keys with the new value give me. So here I'm going to say name is equal to Andre. So what's going to happen is that when we call this, React is going to be like, oh, okay, you want to call setState. So you want to update the state value. What do you want to do? You want to take this object and you want to say, oh, I want to find any name on this object and I want to update it to the new value. So now this object's going to say name equals Ihua. Instead, it's going to update it to name equals Andre. So now if we go back, we clear, we hit change name, we see that it's updated. And the reason for this, again, is because what setState does under the hood is that it's actually updating state to a different object. And React, once it detects, oh, state is now a different object in memory, let me re-render this component and in turn update the application's UI. So now that we understand a bit more of setState as well as object and reference, which is how React determines when a component updates, let's go more in depth into setState, which I will do in the next video. So I'll see you there.